in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
We had our moments, and then we really didn't get anything done in the 2 minute at the end of the half. A lot of times that's where you can make some hay from a yardage standpoint. And we had the interception, and then at the end of the game, we were really just trying to run the clock and weren't in an aggressive mode either. So it sometimes just goes back to playing the game that was called and playing the game you needed to play to win. And, if that means there's not going to be as much offensive production, you'll obviously take that any day to be able to get the win.
Translation, a win is a win. Kirk Cousins
baby.
Telling the media, this is Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Reckless Speculation.
To all who celebrate, Mackey, Judd, our executive producer, Declan, and our friend from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop Podcast, Darren Doogie Wolfson. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday, Doogie.
Good morning, Phil. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Happy holidays.
Yes. Well, let's start with Kirk because he was terrible, but the Vikings won the game, and the most important thing for the Vikings right now is to rack up wins if they want to make the playoffs. But there may have been an underlying reason for why that was one of the worst games of his career, you are telling us.
That is indeed correct, Phil. So we saw Kirk Cousins on Wednesday pop up on the injury report. The reason, ribs. I am being told he has a cracked rib. The belief is it happened relatively early in Monday's game. So sure, did that impact the play calling second half? I think there's probably something to be said about that. Maybe that's a little bit of reckless speculation, but he certainly is dealing with something. Now they can, build in some protection. The strong belief is he is playing on Sunday. This is not an injury that is going to keep him off the field for the Rams game on Sunday, but you just have to wonder, with a cracked rib, does he start to play tentatively? How does that impact him mentally? So just something to keep an eye on. But again, he absolutely is playing on Sunday. Don't worry about Sean Mannion having to be the quarterback against the Rams.
Do we know any details of when this might have transpired as far as him suffering said cracked rib?
Well, Akeem Hicks put him on the ground how many different times? Akeem Hicks is a very large gentleman. So presumably, one of those times. But no, I don't know the specific play, Judd. But just look relatively early in the game when he was taken to the ground. He was sacked how many different times on Monday? 4, whatever it was. How many times was he hit in addition to the sacks? A number of times. So just go back sometime in the first or second quarter. I'm led to believe it was the first half on Monday.
So, yeah, we've had some discussions this week, and one of our stats of the week on Purple Daily, Kirk Cousins, the last 2 games, is 0 for 18 with 2 interceptions when facing pressure. And I believe it's 4 or 5 total sacks over those 2 games against the Bears and the Steelers. And so, I think there's 2 ways to look at that. There's a lot of people that are going to say, well, offensive line. Come on, you got to give this guy some protection because he's great when he's protected. But the other way to look at it is you get into December, January, especially when you're playing some of the best teams in the NFL, they're going to find ways to get pressure on you. And it's up to you as an offense, whether it's scheme or the quarterback, to be better than 0 for 18 with 2 interceptions when pressured. Like, you're not just going to get clean pockets for the rest of the season against the Rams and the Packers, et cetera. So where do you kind of fall when you look at the last 2 weeks, especially second half against Pittsburgh and the entire game against Chicago? Are you saying, offensive line, come on, that's all on you? Or are you saying, well, okay, the offensive line could be better, but Kirk, 0 for 18 against pressure it's not going to cut it.
I think both, Phil, right? Like, Mason Cole had his issues on Monday. Mason Cole,
yeah,
I'm sure, still having nightmares about that Bears interior defensive line. I'll also add, missing Adam Thielen is a pretty significant, talking point, I think, when discussing Kirk's issues the last 2 weeks. I still think Adam, when at the top of his game, is a top 10 receiver in the league. Yeah, maybe he's not quite Justin Jefferson, but he's still among the best in the game. And when he's not out there, that impacts Kirk. And will he be back on Sunday? He spoke with us on Wednesday, alluding to the idea that there's hope. But I can also tell you watch the video of him warming up on Monday night. It's troublesome. I've brought it up with Judd. I can't remember, Phil, if I brought it up with you. But, when he initially got hurt, what was that, December 5th? Was that the Lions game on December 5th? High ankle sprain, a borderline grade 2, grade 3 sprain, I'm told. That's like a 6-week injury. So, like, he really has no business playing in this Rams game. Probably doesn't have any business playing in the Packers game on January 2nd, but he's a different breed. He's got, Dalvin Cook type, qualities about him. When Dalvin came back pretty quickly from that shoulder injury, Adams, wired the same way. So Adam is pushing to play. Heck, I told you, he was pushing to play in that Pittsburgh game 4 days later. That just was never realistic, but he was. And he certainly was pushing to play on Monday. Like, there's a reason why he flew to Chicago. When he woke up Monday morning in Chicago, his intention was, I'm finding a way to play. But like you saw him moving in that pregame video, like, no way. And frankly, I'm just telling you, like, based on the initial diagnosis, like, he's got no business playing against the Rams. But I think that also plays a role in some of Cousins' hiccups the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. And I think the problem, too, is that, Cook came back and played great against Pittsburgh with a shoulder, which was awesome to watch, but it's a shoulder. I think the thing with Thielen is we think, well, he'll come back and be that guy. Well, Doogie, going back to what you're talking about with what we saw during his brief time trying to warm up in Chicago, I think any assumption that he's going to come back and actually be himself is crazy because, like, he can't really move well. So can he run a route, like jog out to a route and go catch a ball? Probably, yeah. Can he compile substantial yak after said catch? Probably not. So like, that's the thing is, it's one thing for Cook to play through an upper body injury, as us hockey folks like to say. It's another to try and play through what looks to be a significantly sprained ankle once you catch the ball.
Well, yeah, I mean, running and cutting, right? Like, the two most important things for a wide receiver. Sure, you have to be able to block, but, when you boil it down, it's running and cutting. If you've got a messed up ankle, best of luck doing both of those at a high level. So I think exactly what you said, Judd, is spot on. I'll also add on Kirk, like, okay, let's keep going with this idea that he could potentially play tentative, right, with a cracked rib. So, like, how does that play into, when the Rams are bringing pressure on Sunday? How does he react to that? How does he protect, that rib? And so,
great point.
Yeah, it's a tough spot on Sunday. That being said, call me nuts. I just think short week for the Rams, right, and having to travel here, noon kickoff, so 10 a.m. West Coast time. Call me nuts. I think the Vikings find a way to win on Sunday.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't shock. The Vikings are 3-point underdogs right now, by the way, but 80+% of the money, according to Action Network, is on the Vikings. So there's the majority of the bets right now are on the Rams, but most of the money is on the Vikings, and that would tell you that some smart high roller money is coming in on the Vikings to cover the 3. So
I mean, I'll also add this though, Phil. I mean, I talk about how Kirk Cousins is playing on Sunday. The elephant in the room for the last year plus is COVID, right? Like, with the numbers spiking at an alarmingly high rate, like we talk about Kirk, Dalvin Cook and others, like, they need to find a way to stay off that COVID list, So as we sit here and talk on Thursday morning, there's still a few days to go until we get to Sunday. Like, that's always going to be the elephant in the room, right? Like, they need to find a way to get to game day.
Yeah, well, and you were telling us off microphone that there's a little tension behind the scenes potentially.
Well, Phil, there's been tension for a while, but I hear on Wednesday it escalated to another level. A coach, not Mike Zimmer, but a coach and an unvaccinated player got into a pretty heated argument during practice over COVID. And so, yeah, just imagine, right? Like, there's so much at stake. Think about the coaching staff wondering if they'll be back next year. So much on the line. Yeah. At least find a way to get to the playoffs. Give yourself a chance. Heck, if it's the 7-seed Vikings, right now it would be what? The 7-seed Vikings at the 2-seed Cowboys?
Yes.
If you're a Vikings fan, if you're a Vikings coach, a Vikings player, are you curling up in the fetal position thinking about the possibility of playing Dallas?
No,
I would think, what? That's a toss-up
take that game all day. Yes.
You would take that game all day, right? You would say, what? We can go down to Dallas. That's a toss-up game. We absolutely can beat the Dallas Cowboys. We won there, what was it, last year or 2 years ago in a compelling game? They got
as long as they don't start Cooper Rush. As long as Cooper Rush stays on the sideline.
Yeah. Correct. Cooper
Careful
got them. on Halloween night. But I'm just saying, if you're a member of the Vikings, you're thinking, hey, we'll take our chances as the 7 seed at 2 seed Dallas, but we need our full complement of guys. If they can stay, out of the COVID protocols. I mean, right now they're about as healthy as they've been. Yeah, okay, Danielle Hunter not coming back. Everson Griffen, by the way, not coming back. Mike Zimmer was asked about Everson Griffen on Wednesday, saying he really doesn't have much of an update. I'm led to believe Zim's got a pretty good idea that Everson is not coming back. Put it this way. Everson hasn't been training as if he'll be coming back this year. He posted on Instagram in the last, 7 to 10 days, he's been diagnosed as bipolar. So thankfully for him, his family, there's some more clarity on his situation. He is getting a lot of help, first and foremost. That's what we care about with Everson. But in terms of him helping the Vikings the rest of this season, that's not a scenario that I foresee happening. That's not a scenario the Vikings are planning on.
Mm-hmm. Real quick on the COVID front, I know it's the favorite topic of all of our audience here, but we've already had 2 teams that have had their top 2 quarterbacks have to sit, and they've gone to a third-string quarterback. And I think some of the tension with the Vikings is probably surrounding the new protocols too, and that yes, anyone, especially with the new variant, anyone vaccinated can also get COVID. But the NFL has relaxed, I guess that's maybe not the right word to use, but they've changed their protocol so that they're not testing vaccinated players as regularly. They're basically saying, listen, 90% of these cases are asymptomatic and no one knows, and we don't want to know. We don't want to know, and we don't want to have 6 guys and a starting quarterback sit out feeling fine. So they've just said, we're going to test less. And so if you're an unvaccinated player, you still have fairly aggressive protocol, and it's more likely that you could get flagged for, even if you don't feel symptoms, flagged for being positive and have to sit out 2 games.
Well, let me give you that example. Alexander Madison, he has now been activated off the COVID list as of Wednesday. He was pretty much asymptomatic, maybe the sniffles, but he's not vaccinated, right? So He was stuck. He was out, but could Alexander Madison have played on Monday night against the Bears? I'm led to believe yes, he could have played, but the rules are in place that he can't. Cole Beasley of the Buffalo Bills has been pretty vocal about his situation testing positive, that it's not COVID keeping him out of the Bills lineup this weekend. It's the NFL rules for unvaccinated players. So that's where it's a slippery slope. I mean, Harrison Smith. Do I think Harrison Smith, as he tested positive the morning of November 7th, that game in Baltimore, do I think he could have played that day? I do. Yeah, I mean, his symptoms were very minimal. Could he have played in that Chargers game on November 14th? Yeah, I'm led to believe Harrison Smith could have played that game as well. But he's not vaccinated. But then you've got a guy like Dakota Dozier, who was added to the active roster this week, by the way. He's vaccinated, but he ended up in the hospital. So, I mean, I don't have the answers, but I can see where Harrison Smith, Alexander Madison, some others are throwing their hands up saying, what the bleep? What's going on here? I feel fine. I'm not really, having any symptoms. Why can't I go out there and play?
But they told the problem is, and this has probably been a problem with a lot of teams throughout the course of the year, but going back to day 1 of training camp here, Dukes, this has been the underlying tension in that building, which is not COVID. It's not the vaxxed players, but the league basically told these guys, if you're not vaxxed, no political statement here from me, we're going to make life as difficult as possible on you. And the coaches said, 1, even if we don't want to get vaxxed, we have to. 2, we want to win. And this traces back to, this was an all-in year, right? And so everyone, I think, from the coaching staff and a lot of players had the mentality of, we have to do whatever we could possibly do to win, or people get fired and guys don't come back. And so I really believe the underlying tension that is felt, that has been felt through with the Vikings for me throughout the course of 2021 goes back to that. And do you want to win? And right or wrong, beliefs or not, if you didn't get vaxxed, there was a definite feeling from some that the guys that didn't get vaxxed didn't care enough about trying to win football games, which we all know these guys put quietly, before family, before anything. And that's where this got dicey. Again, no political statement. That's just what the feeling was to me.
100%. But Adam Thielen, not vaccinated. But I don't know if there's a more competitive player in that locker room than Adam
but I think
Thielen.
that's what
so it
didn't
flies
make
in the
sense
face of what you said, but I don't disagree.
But it didn't make
you
sense to
said.
people. That's
well, and it still doesn't make sense to this day to me. It just doesn't. So, put me in that category of I don't get it. I'll also say, guys have been told, do everything in your power. I know a bunch of guys were supposed to go to the Wolves-Lakers game last Friday. They pulled the plug on that. Some other Vikings personnel were supposed to go to the Soul Asylum concert at First Avenue last Friday night. They pulled the plug on that. So they are trying their best to avoid just about all public settings.
Yeah. Doogie, why don't you give us, just from your standpoint, the people you talk to, if the Wilf family played a game of fire extend year to year with Kirk Cousins, Rick Spielman, and Mike Zimmer, and you have to put each of them in a category, what categories would they fall in? Basically, how do the Wilfs feel about those three big-time leaders in this organization in order?
Well, okay, let's start with, I guess, the guy at the highest of those three, Rick Spielman. I don't think they're firing him. I don't. Now, could I see a scenario where it plays out like it did in Denver, where Denver brings in George Payton, John Elway remains on staff with some sort of cushy title, but I have no idea what John Elway's day-to-day actual involvement is. I don't know if George Payton is leaning on John Elway for any advice. I think George is making a lot of decisions without John Elway's input. So could I maybe see a scenario like that playing out come January, where Rick Spielman remains on staff with some sort of cushy title, but doesn't necessarily have the authority he does now? Sure, I could see a scenario like that, but I have a hard time believing, as the Vikings, start training camp next July, that Rick Spielman is not going to be present. I see him here in some sort of, capacity. Remains to be seen what that is. On Kirk Cousins, until I hear that the Wilfs are willing to hit the reset button, I think he's back. I do. What's the alternative? And we can debate what hitting rock bottom really would mean. They haven't been over 500 since 2019. So, how far of a step backwards would you really take? You've already taken a step backwards with Kirk Cousins. But I think the Wilfs still intend to compete in 2022. So does Kirk Cousins give you the best chance? Now, we know the Vikings can't have Kirk Cousins on their roster next year under the current terms of his contract. So you probably end up extending him. So if I had to bet right now, it's extend with Kirk Cousins, not fire. But some of the trade fodder is fun. I know ESPN Insider had that Pittsburgh Steelers, trade concoction the other day. It's fun to talk about. I'm not necessarily ruling it out, but if you're asking me fire or extend, I think it's extend with Kirk Cousins. On Zim, I think it's been trending in the direction of a firing for a while. And we can debate whether that's right or wrong. I think if he ultimately ends up losing his job, I think we can look back and say he certainly wasn't a failure of a coach. Maybe a failure in the end. But, if you look at the total body of work for 8 years, there's a lot to like. Yeah. And he had to deal with a lot of crap, right? So I think, I think 3, 4, 5 years from now, we'll look back at the Mike Zimmer era and say, you know what? Pretty darn good head coach, all things considered. Yeah, we can nitpick. Yeah, clock management and some other stuff. The defense taking a step backwards in 2020. The defense in many ways taking a step back here in 2021. That's his bread and butter. But I just think 3, 4, 5 years from now, we'll look back at the Mike Zimmer era and say, you know what? There's a lot of good there. But if you're asking me fire or extend, they're certainly not extending Mike Zimmer. So I will tell you fire on Mike Zimmer.
And on Zim, he's got 2 years left and one guaranteed, Dukes. Is that right, contractually?
Well, yeah, he's guaranteed for 2022. There's some scuttlebutt out there that 2023 is a partial guarantee. I did have somebody about 6 weeks ago tell me that's close to Zim. No, it's more than a partial guarantee. I still need to dig a little bit more on that, but certainly he's guaranteed in the vicinity of $8 million for 2022. Let's even say it is some sort of partial guarantee for 2023. It's still going to be partially guaranteed at least $4 to $5 million. So the Wilfs would have to cut a very healthy check to let Mike Zimmer go. We're talking north of $12, $13 million.
This is great stuff, man. I love Reckless Speculation
Love
Thursday.
it.
My God.
We got breaking news too, though. Kirk
Cousins.
Cousins cracked rib. That's not reckless. That's breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, this
That's
is
kicker stuff, man.
Listen, man, like these last few games are going to be such a great, like everything you're going to need to know about what direction to go this offseason is right in front of you these next few weeks. Kirk Cousins is set to make the second or third highest amount of money, and there's no way he plays on that cap hit next year. But listen, man, like your offensive line's not perfect. You're playing some tough playoff teams down the stretch. You got to win at least 2 of these games to get in. So you're going to have to beat either the Packers or the Rams to get into the playoffs, and you got a cracked rib. And the answer can't be, well, you got to rise above it. You got to rise above it.
And you know what? I mean, you can overcome
jacket.
one. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean, you can overcome one cracked rib. Like, I don't think it's Rob Gronkowski for cracked ribs, right? I think Drew
Brees had like 5 or 6 cracked ribs.
And he played through it last year, right? For the most part. Did he end up missing one game? I can't recall.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coward.
But I mean, that was multiple. I am not led to believe this is, some sort of multiple cracked ribs. I'm pretty sure it's singular. So I mean, you can have some protection there. I mean, the headline still is he's playing on Sunday. So if you're going to play, and his mindset will be, I'm going to find a way. But yeah, I mean, it's one thing after another, right? I mean, this franchise, for the 20-something years I've covered them, Judd, you go back further than that, like year by year, they provide us plenty of fodder.
Yeah. All right, Dukes, give us some non-Viking stuff. Empty the bag here. When are the Timberwolves going to make a trade?
Well, I mean, I think Sachin Gupta would love to, sometime real soon. But I would have told you that 2 weeks ago. Yeah. When things ramped up, or at least a week ago, when things ramped up on December 15th with more guys being trade eligible. I don't know if it'll be a blockbuster trade. Yeah, is there interest in Ben Simmons? Sure, although I checked on Ben Simmons on Wednesday. I was told nothing new. So, yeah, the Wolves have reached out to Philadelphia in the last, 7 to 10 days. But there's nothing new in the last, week or so, 5 days. There's no new dialogue there. The Philadelphia 76ers know where the Wolves stand on that, what the Wolves are willing to do. There really hasn't been any sort of progress on a Ben Simmons trade to Minnesota. There is interest in Miles Turner. We've established that going back many weeks, but I'm also not convinced we'll see a blockbuster trade like that. Like, to me, if the Wolves trade for Miles Turner, to me, it's a cusp blockbuster trade. That's a guy you're bringing in to play 35 minutes a night. He'd start, in terms of the moving parts, you move Cat to the 4. Like, to me, if you're moving, Cat to a different position, having him guard opposition 4s, like, to me, that would be blockbuster-esque, but I still think that's a tough trade to execute. So I think he'll make a trade by the deadline. What's the deadline? February 10th. I think we'll see some sort of action by February 10th, but it could be for somebody that comes off the bench. Yeah. I don't want to say a bit player, maybe somebody that's more like your 7th man, 8th man, somebody that can rebound, defend, somebody with some size, some bulk. But I don't know if it'll be Miles Turner or Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Hey, Dukes, what does Gupta have to do to get the job? Like, are there things that they're evaluating him on that are going to help push him towards replacing Gerson permanently?
Yeah, stay out of relationships with coworkers. That's number one.
Or do they just get... You know what? If you build the roster that Gerson did, I don't care what you do.
Yeah, you can date anyone you want. You do whatever you want.
Go ahead and date.
Oh, I'm sorry. Patrick Beverley's been amazing. Please come back.
You know what? With this godforsaken franchise, since when are we worried about off-the-court relationships? If you can build a team that gets me the LOB and I'm Laurie and A-Rod, I don't give a damn. But, like, does Gupta have to do something here to show them something, or are they impressed inherently because they gave him a job for now? Or, like, what's the long-term prognosis, in your opinion, for that position? Because it's certainly vitally important.
Yeah, by the way, the Rosas relationship was consensual. It's not like he forced her into anything. So, I mean, it was 2 consenting adults.
Watch this. Don't ask, don't tell.
Now, it was like a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, but I heard, Gerson and that woman are still seeing each other, right? So, I mean, there's legitimate love there, I guess. He did make some good moves. Like, to me, the best under-the-radar move, Jared Vanderbilt. Making that move a part of
the Pat Bev move was a great move.
That February 2020 blockbuster. The Pat Beverly move has worked out well too, although I'm still a Ricky Rubio, fan, and he's been unbelievable for Cleveland. So they probably would have been fine just keeping Ricky Rubio. But yeah, I mean, it's undeniable the impact Patrick Beverly has had on this franchise. I'll add, by the way, Beverly, so he's still in the COVID protocols. He's one of these asymptomatic guys. So, we talk about the NBA now. Like, some of these NBA guys are like, what the heck? Josh Okogie, like, no symptoms. Like, Okogie's like, why the hell do I have to isolate? Like, let me play. So, I mean, that's unfortunate with the Wolves still missing a bunch of guys heading into tonight's game in Utah. But on Gupta, like, probably some willingness to take a cheap contract. Remember, Glenn Taylor's still cutting the checks. Glenn Taylor's still the ultimate boss. Maybe Mark and Mark Laurie, Alex Rodriguez can convince, Glenn to cut a big check for, an Elton Brand type, paying some executive north of $5, $6, $7 million a year. But I don't know if Glenn is real inclined to do that on his own. So Glenn might say, you know what? Sachin Gupta knows what the heck he's doing, to enough extent. He's willing to do this job at, 60% of the price I'd have to pay Elton Brand or Landry Fields or Calvin Booth or somebody else, some other logical candidate, or maybe even less, 50%, 40%. Heck, we'll just make Sachin Gupta the new president of operations. But, he really hadn't done much besides adding a couple guys on 10-day deals that, if they end up playing tonight, it means the Wolves are either blowing out Utah or getting blown out. Those guys didn't get in the game on the other night in Dallas on Tuesday, so like what moves are going to be made? I'm not quite sure, outside of a minor trade. I've got the doorbell ringing. Oh, it's FedEx. Never mind. Doorbell rang.
Bring in the scoops.
Bring in the
scoops.
No. Scoops from Scooby. It's
Scooby. All right.
There he is. He's the man.
Scoops from Scooby. He's got some opinions.
Yes.
Look at those. Just a take machine.
Don't like FedEx. Don't like FedEx. Not Scooby.
All right,
Scooby's
dudes.
a big fan of Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's a dog lover. Scooby loves Ben Johnson. All the Wolves do is win. 10-1 now, baby.
Do we have to be worried about Ben Johnson taking like the Duke job?
Well,
after
I
Matt
joked with
Krzyzewski?
him, so that's funny you bring that up. So I was with him the day that Mark Turgeon ended up parting ways with Maryland. And so I said, hey, Ben, should I start the Ben Johnson to Maryland rumors? And he just started laughing. He's like, please, don't do that. Ben is content. I'm not making this up. Ben is content if he's here for the next 15 years. He really is. Like, this is his true dream job.
That's
Mom
awesome.
and Dad are here in town. Heck, his buddies are in town. I was over at Eastridge High School the other day. They have a player that'll play for St. Thomas next year, Kendall Blue, who's, to me, one of the more underrated players in the state. Really good player. But anyway, I was catching up with Josh Peltier, their head coach. He had told me one of his assistant coaches got married in the last, few years. Ben Johnson was in the wedding party. So one of his assistant coaches is one of Ben Johnson's best friends. Ben is really close with Troy Bell. Remember Troy Bell?
Mm-hmm.
First-round NBA pick. Great player at Boston College. Troy Bell lives in town. Ben's always at Troy's house. Like, Ben's circle of life is right here in the Twin Cities. He doesn't need to go anywhere. So I'm telling you, Ben can win at a high level, and he's still staying here for a really long time.
Love it. Love it. I love, we'll see what happens, but I love that he's obsessed with the actual program. Like, he's got roots in the program. I think that matters. It's a very provincial city, and I'm pumped for him. So
well, and all the alumni. JB Bickerstaff is constantly blowing up Ben Johnson's phone. Ryan Saunders was on the trip to Michigan. You've got guys like Jim Peterson, Michael Thompson, even Kevin McHale, like more invested in this program than they've been in a really long time. So I think that does matter, at least a little bit. Willie Burton was at a recent game. Yeah, his son is on the track team here, so he's in town to see his son. But Willie Burton is more involved than he's been. So, yeah. And, heck, losses are going to come, Phil. The schedule ramps up after the first of the year. Once they kick back into Big Ten play, they are going to lose their share of games. But recruiting, as it is at an entirely different level, wait until you see some of the recruits he lands for 2023. He's going to land, I think, the best players here in the state.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yes. All right.
Reckless speculation.
Jugi, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Okay, boys. Happy holidays. We'll talk soon. See ya.
All right, great stuff.
Thanks,
there,
Dukes.
man. Just I need a smoke after that.
Oh yeah, a little Marlboro.
I've never smoked a
go.
cigarette in my life, and I'm ready to light one up after that segment.
Yep.
I think the fact that Cousins is going to play with a cracked rib, and I know Duke said it's just one cracked rib, which to me is one more cracked rib than I would want to play with. This is a big story because Kirk Cousins, the one remarkable thing, and I don't know if this is a credit to him or a credit to good fortune, you guys. Kirk Cousins has been remarkably healthy.
Yeah.
Throughout, I don't think he's been.
It's one of his most valuable traits, really. Like he's always available.
I don't think he's been on an injury report. I saw this in like 8 years. So like it's not like, well, he plays through a bunch of stuff. He actually doesn't have to. So pain tolerance is an unknown here. Like we don't know. And I'm sorry, but a cracked rib is a cracked rib. Mm-hmm. Like it has to hurt to throw and move a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely. And the biggest criticism of Kirk, and it's not just a subjective criticism. It's like his entire career is predicated on when things are perfect, when you're playing a noon game, when you're playing a weaker opponent, when your offensive line, like he needs a lot of those things to play at a high level. Now, like most quarterbacks are going to play at a higher level when the situation's perfect, but when things get muddy, when you're banged up, when you're getting pressure, when you're facing the best teams, all of those things, which you're going to be the next 2 weeks. You're going to be banged up. You're going to be facing a couple double-digit win teams fighting for a number 1 seed, and you got to go through that brick wall. Can he do it? Can he do it twice? He might have to do it against both teams and the entire team, by the way. Like they might have to run the table to make the playoffs. But they for sure have to beat either the Rams or the Packers.
And think about this thought. So you're preparing to play the Rams. It's a short week for both teams. I get that. But Akeem Hicks probably just cracked your rib. And now you look at the Rams' defensive depth chart, and Aaron Donald's right there.
Aaron Donald wants to eat the meat off of that crack.
But I'm sorry, for any normal person,
Football.
Like you're going to look at that and be like, oh crap. Because it's not like, well, now we got a team that's really not going to put that much pressure and I'm going to have some time. So, not that this is a deal breaker because he certainly didn't have a good game on Monday, but Mason Cole's hurt and didn't practice on Wednesday. And so Oli Udoh,
what's his injury?
Might be back at right guard. I believe it is an ankle, if I'm not mistaken.
Broke those ankles trying to.
But
soul got crushed.
The point being is that this is going to be a very interesting part of the Sunday storyline.
Questionable parentheses soul.
Yeah, soul
Shang
taken.
Tsung was
Soul taken from him around Christmas too. How sad is that?